Sets aside judgment of the Court of Appeal recognizing Julius Abure as national chairman of Labour Party, but supporters of the embattled chairman says Abure remains in charge. Tonight, we go beyond the headlines to understand what now appears two different interpretations of the Apex Court judgment. Welcome to the program, everyone. You can join the conversation right now on X using the hashtag Beyond the Headlines. Remember to tag at TVC News NG and at Nifemi Oguntoye. Some updates on the traffic situation on Lagos Island. The Minister of Works has reopened Lagos Independence Bridge, asking residents to begin to use it. The Ministry of Works earlier today filled up the excavation area construction workers dug out for the rehabilitation of the Independence Bridge. Initially closed on 1st of April for a 2-month repair, the bridge was reopened earlier today, and it happened much earlier than expected due to public outcry over traffic congestion on the island on Wednesday. The Federal Ministry of Works, led by the Minister, David Umahi, directed the immediate reopening of the bridge after efforts to carry out palliative works made it motorable. Further inspections are planned to assess the durability of the repair. So is this a permanent fix? The Minister says we might have to wait for another 2 or 3 weeks to answer that question. We're monitoring that story very closely, and we'll bring you updates in our subsequent bulletin. Now let's turn our attention to our talking point on the show today. The Supreme Court has made another very important pronouncement, setting aside the judgment of the Court of Appeal recognizing Julius Abure as national chairman of the Labour Party. In a unanimous judgment, a 5-member panel of the Apex Court held that the Court of Appeal lacked the jurisdiction to have announced Mr. Abure as national chairman of the party after finding out earlier that the substance of the case was about party leadership. The Apex Court also held that the issue of leadership was an internal affair of a party over which courts lacked jurisdiction. The court allowed the appeal filed by Senator Nenadi Usman and one other, holding that it was meritorious. It also proceeded to dismiss the cross-appeal filed by the Abure group of the Labour Party for being unmeritorious. But in a swift reaction, the faction loyal to the disputed chairman has clarified that the Supreme Court's decision doesn't affect Mr. Abure's position as national chairman. The party asserts that it followed its constitution in organizing the party convention, which elected him as national chairman and Farouk Ibrahim as national secretary. According to this group, the party maintains that Abure and Ibrahim are the recognized national leaders. The press statement signed by Dr. Arabambi Abayomi, a national publicity secretary, aims to set the record straight and dispel any misinformation circulating in the media. Well, he joins me on the program this evening to understand the position of the Labour Party and how it's responding with the latest update from the Supreme Court. Mr. Arabambi, thanks for joining us on the program.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You know, even with the Supreme Court judgment, politicians have different interpretations, and that's what's playing out here. The Supreme Court has set aside the Court of Appeal's judgment, which recognized Abure as chairman, calling it a nullity for lacking jurisdiction. Yet your statement claims Abure remains chairman. Isn't this a direct contradiction?
Well, thank you very much. We are on international television that have coverage all over the world. And it's not good for us, to be engaged, in kind of distortion of facts. The appeal before the Supreme Court today was in respect of the judgment of the Court of Appeal delivered on January 17. And that matter commences from the Federal Court between INEC and the national leadership. What happened was, in that matter, INEC failed to recognize Abure and Farouk Umar into the INEC consultative meeting. This was why the matter proceeded to Federal Court. And the Federal Court ordered them to accept chairman and secretary in person of Abure and Farouk. This was the judgment that INEC and the caretaker, they were not pleased with. They now proceeded to Court of Appeal. And when that judgment was granted on the 17th, let me make it something very clear. The lead judge said, and I quote, Judgement said, the two appeal by INEC and Nene Usman lack merit and they declared jurisdiction. The reason why they declared jurisdiction was this. You all remember November 13, 2024, in the build-up to Ondo governorship election, there was one caretaker committee set up by the president of NLC. That person was their former president, Abure Omar. He was the one that somehow after our primary and Dr. Olorunfemi had been published as the duly candidate of Labour Party. They were the one that went to court then to invalidate that submission, challenging Abure leadership on the party. Labour Party now filed an appeal. I want you to get me right. They went to court first because that matter started in Ondo. It was the NLC, Ebisheni and Co. that went to court, federal court. That was when the court said no, they have jurisdiction to determine party leadership. Which we now filed an appeal before the Court of Appeal, and judgment on November 13 stated clearly that issue of leadership is not justiciable. That was where it first of all arose. The issue of leadership cannot be brought before the court, and it was left unattended to like that. Let me be very frank, neither the NLC nor the candidate that was removed, Ebisheni, filed any appeal before the Supreme Court. And as I speak to you today, that judgment is subsisting. It is dead and buried, and nothing anybody can do about it. The second one was what the Supreme Court was making deliberation upon today. Before the Supreme Court, there was no any other appeal other than the one involving INEC, where they refused to take the chairman and secretary into their quarterly consultative meeting. So in essence, what the Supreme Court says today is to affirm what Justice Amambaka also said, that they declared jurisdiction. In January, they declared jurisdiction to entertain matter from INEC. They declared jurisdiction to entertain matter from Nene Usman. That was January 17. Justice Amambaka said that the appeal judgment delivered November 13 is still subsisting and it has not been set aside. Even as of today, the judgment has not been set aside. So wherever they got the information from is very funny to me. And it is today in
how do you just a minute, Mr. Arabambi, while we are with the certified true copy to understand the extent of judgment by the Apex Court today, I'm wondering how you interpret the Apex Court dismissing Abure's cross appeal as unmeritorious and holding forth the other party.
No. You see, did you ever, I hope you have read what Nene Usman said. Appeal Court did not, the Supreme Court never declared Nene Usman as chairman.
That's not what I'm saying, Mr. Arabambi, but the Apex Court dismissed Abure's cross appeal. That's the point I'm making as unmeritorious.
What the court says is this matter is not justiciable. All of them together, you don't have to bring issue of party leadership to the court. That's what they are saying.
And that's the point, and that appears to be the point here, that the Supreme Court ruled that courts cannot decide party leadership. Yet your press release implies the judgment confirms Abure. Isn't this misleading, since the court explicitly avoided endorsing anyone?
No, you didn't get me. I said ab initio. There are two judgments from the Court of Appeal. One on November 13, one on January 17. I want you to get me right. The one on November 13 says they declared jurisdiction over the matter brought to court by the NLC caretaker, challenging Abure leadership. That was when the federal court assumed jurisdiction on that matter in October. But in November, Court of Appeal set aside the judgment asking that remove Ebisheni and put forth Dr. Elonifemi, who was the candidate of Labour Party, and that matter died there. Now, the second issue was between INEC and Labour Party. They came in as a joiner. I am not telling you that what Supreme Court says today is not new, because ab initio, in November 13, 2024, Court of Appeal declared jurisdiction over the appeal brought by Caretaker Committee that it is not justiciable. Don't bring the issue of party leadership before court. Go and, exhaust your internal party machinery. That judgment is not new today. So what we are saying is this, in law, when people come to you with any document, it is normal for you, to file your counter. You don't just say because Supreme Court says something somewhere, you will not leave that matter unattended road like the one that affected, this guy in a Rivers. So if anybody take me to court today, whether it is right or wrong, I am going to file my preliminary objection. I won't just leave you to go ahead and people will say,
I didn't counter. I hear you clearly. And the question I've heard from the other side of the divide is that if the Court of Appeal's recognition of Abure was struck down and the Supreme Court says...
No, it was not struck down.
But the Supreme Court was clear that it did not have jurisdiction to determine when it comes to party leadership. I mean, that is in black and white, right?
Okay, very good.
Yeah, but what they're saying now is that doesn't this now mean that Abure's position is still unresolved as far as the Labour Party's constitution is concerned?
Okay, in the paper before the court, somebody said, I am the caretaker and I am suing Abure in his capacity. They now decline jurisdiction to hear the matter. This is what happened. The status quo remain. The status quo remain. And what was the status quo? The first caretaker, we have two caretakers in Labour Party. The NLC has their own. The governor of Lesotho has his own. The very first people that started was the NLC. They were the one that ran to court. And the court said, no, Federal Court, on November 13th, Court of Appeal told Federal Court, you cannot bring this issue. That was why that matter was thrown out, and they now asked INEC to remove Ebiseni and put Ayolorunfemi. That matter was there. Justice Abubakar didn't do anything wrong. He said in his judgment on January 17th, he said the judgment that has affirmed Abure at November 13th has not been set aside. Let me tell you the tricks here. Nenedi Usman filed an appeal on the one of INEC. But she cannot file appeal on the one involving...
Hold that thought for a minute, Mr. Arabambi. Let's go on a short break and we'll talk more about this after this break. Please don't go away.
Experience information and entertainment like never before as TVC Breakfast takes your weekends to a whole new level. Introducing TVC Breakfast Weekend Edition, your ultimate source of thrilling sports updates, insightful political analysis, and captivating entertainment news. Stay in the know with what's trending, catch up with the latest in sports, and immerse yourself in the latest buzz from the world of music and movies. Your weekends are no longer just days off, but moments packed with knowledge, excitement, and enjoyment. TVC Breakfast Weekend Edition, only on TVC News.
Labour Party chieftain Dr. Arabambi Abayomi, thank you for staying the course on the program. Now, if the Supreme Court didn't affirm Abure, on what basis does your statement insist is the only chairman?
No, the Supreme Court, the issue before the Supreme Court, it was not about affirmation or no affirmation. Are you getting me? That's why I said you should try to get the substance of the matter. The people that went on appeal was INEC. It was this matter between INEC, refusal to accept Abure and our national secretary into their quarterly consultative meeting. It wasn't about the issue of who is the chairman or not. They said, no, we are not going to allow you. But before then, there was a primary conducted by Kateka that produced the BCNE, and there was a primary conducted by Labour Party that produces Dr. Ayolorun Femi. INEC published Ayolorun Femi name be from the normal legitimate leadership of the party. But NLC went to court. That's what I'm explaining to you. They went to what Justice Emeka Nwite, who assumed jurisdiction on October 8th. And by November 13th, Court of Appeal by Aman Baraka said that the federal court lacked jurisdiction to have delved into the issue of leadership. You understand? That was the judgment. They left it. But in January 17, when the same INEC was before the Court of Appeal, the panel was headed by Justice Amambaka. He now reiterated that, gentlemen, the November 13th judgment refuses to assume jurisdiction. So we also not assume jurisdiction over this matter. You understand? And now Supreme Court today said we are not going to assume jurisdiction because issue of leadership is not justiciable. You know, if you look at the judgment in Rivers,
yes, sometimes you can get lost.
If you look at the judgment between PDP National Secretary, you add what they said.
I hear you clearly, Dr. Arabambi. Sometimes you can get lost in all of the details as to the many court cases that have happened before now. But you and I can agree on the fact that what the Apex Court has said today is that the court lacks jurisdiction when it comes to party leadership. So it takes us back to the Labour Party and to start asking questions as to...
we are not the appellant.
What is the... No. But do you agree that the Apex Court did say the court lacks jurisdiction when it comes to party leadership?
Of course.
So if we agree on that, let us.
They did it in Plateau State.
Let us. I hear you clearly, but let us choose that as a premise of our conversation moving forward. The question right now is what happens back with the Labour Party, because as the Labour Party stands today, there are those who believe that Abure's overstaying is welcome, and that the convention that produced him the second time is not recognized. That some have asked for documented proof, you know, that his elections strictly followed Labour Party's constitution, given allegations of rigged delegates and what have you. What role do you see the NWC and even the NEC play in all of this? Let me be very
frank with you. The Supreme Court said today that party must obey their constitution. They were not the first one to say it. The very first judgment was in the case of Ameship versus Magnus Abbey, where my Judge of Supreme Court, Mary Odili, says that party must obey their constitution. In our constitution, only two people can call for national convention. That is the national chairman and national secretary. The notice will be issued by national secretary. He will now go and get approval of national chairman. Now, regarding convention, what 82.12345 says is that party shall give INEC 21-day notice. Failure to give them in 82.5 is that it remains fatal and whatever outcome of such will be nullified. Now, they gave INEC 21-day notice. So it is not the business of anybody. If INEC fail to come, you have followed the constitution, you know, of Nigeria, and you also follow the constitution of your party. The constitution of our party recognizes Abure and not any other person. So regarding issue of jurisdiction, we are not the appellant. The appellant came and they were claiming that issue of leadership, and the court said, no court should delve into the issue of leadership of a political party. It happened in the cases of the two secretaries of PDP. All of you are aware. It happened in Plateau State during the governorship election, where the governor of Kano and Plateau, they lost at the court of, at the tribunal, they lost at the court of Appeal. It was the Supreme Court that said, no, you don't come and tell us that the ESCO that produced the governor candidate is not a valid ESCO, that it is purely internal affairs of the party. This is what Supreme Court says today. Supreme Court is not saying, Abure is the chairman, Abure is not the chairman. No, that would not Supreme Court say that. But today has ended any matter before even any politician. Once any chairman is removed or any member of ESCO is removed, what the court is saying today is that go back to your party. You have internal mechanisms.
Absolutely, Dr. Arbabi. And I agree to you to the extent that the Supreme Court's judgment today is a rejection of judicial interference. And And on the other side of the coin, which I believe you also agree, is that it is not an endorsement of Abure as chairman. But what the other factions are saying, what the other faction is saying as regards your narrative, especially your press statement, they say it appears to be cherry picking, while ignoring the court's dismissal of Abure's appeal. The Labour Party's crisis, according to them, remain unresolved. The only thing right now is that the battle shifts back to internal party mechanisms, which you have just mentioned. But what is the way forward for your party in that regard? Because it also appears that even within the Labour Party, in the state where you have a governor, they don't seem to agree completely with the leadership of Julius Abure.
Well, thank you very much. You saw the judgment of FCCI court in NNPP. It is like that. But you see, for us, we are in talk, with most of these leaders, and we are on the path, of reconciling with everyone that has, some form of misgiving. But as far as we are concerned, the internal mechanism of the party, the leadership of the party, as of today, recognizes Abure, and that is what the Supreme Court says. So that tomorrow people will not just be disturbing the court because we are moving towards election. They don't want party to be coming down. I was supposed to conduct primary, they have removed me, pre-election to post-election matter. They don't want it. So for us, the way forward for us is that there is going to be, a meeting of all and sundry where all of us, will put a card on the table and chart a new way forward. But that meeting also will be called by the national chairman. Because
your party as of today has an elected governor. Do you think it is a litmus test on Abure's leadership to have the governor work with him? Because how do you preside over a party when the only governor you have isn't on your side?
We have had it before. The governor of Kano State is not with Dr. Abonament. And that the party didn't die. Is it the governor?
The party didn't die, but the party hasn't necessarily moved forward since then. You have not won as many more elections as you did at the time. That's the point I'm making.
No, it doesn't matter. You see, what matters most is that for us to uphold the tenet of democracy, when we have leaders, you must also respect the party leadership, for God's sake. Governor Lesotho wouldn't have done that in PDP. No PDP governor would do what he was doing to just want to corner everybody and bamboozle their way into the top. It is not done. It was because of the law, the INF fellowship that we opened, that made that thing look like that. But, we made them to understand that the leadership of the party must be respected. There is no way about it, no two way about it. It also happened in NNPP where you saw the governor, they changed the logo of the party, illegally. Such a thing are not good. When they take people to the party, try to recognize that party leadership. Not because once you have gotten power, you now want to use that power against those, that help you to get that power. So for today, in Labour Party, the leadership has decided by the Supreme Court that it's only the leader of the party that knows, their leader. The party, as of today, in our constitution, any meeting must be called by national chairman. Any meeting that is not called by national chairman,
good place to leave it.